Yeah.
Okay, so welcome. This is Solomon saying hello. Welcome to his puddle. He's self-isolating in a puddle in the swamp.
He's welcoming us to his swamp.
Yeah. There. So what I've done is I've just prepared a little bit of a review, mostly about perception, and then want to talk today about the decision-making process, which we've kind of glanced over a couple times in class, but we haven't really gotten into it. So I'll walk us through that. And then I've got breakout rooms set up for you guys. We'll see how this works. I've never done it before, but the idea is that you guys can actually meet in your groups via breakout rooms in Zoom. Anybody experienced a breakout room in Zoom yet?
No.
No.
All right, well, we'll give it a go.
First time for everything.
Yeah, we'll see if it works. So anyway, let's talk about how perception, you remember from our audio lecture, perception creates reality. So there's Charlie, and there's you off in the distance, right? You're the creator of stimuli. And, you know, whoever Charlie is, it's Charlene, Charlie, you know, this is our representative consumer. And they are shaped by their circumstance, I call it. You know, the culture that they come from and grew up in, any subcultures that they belong to, the roles, the status, their family, their reference groups, age, income, lifestyle, values, all of those things. Oh, don't go the right way. And we kind of examine that, or the output of the results of that, I guess, by looking at the psychological things, which we've really been digging into. We spent quite a bit of time on perception, some on learning and memory. We talked about self-concept last class, and we still have attitudes and beliefs to go, and something about motivation and emotions as well. But we use out there in the grand world, there's lots of stimuli and choices, lots of stimuli. Fortunately, we have a perceptual barrier. Oh, and you see it's got a little crack in it.
Yeah.
And if stimuli comes within range of our perceptual barrier, we call that exposure. If it sort of gets through the perceptual barrier, we call that awareness. And if it gets right through and we start actually paying attention to it, we call that interpretation, where Charlie starts to apply meaning to that whatever the stimuli is, tries to figure out what it really is. And we use a bunch of what are called heuristics and biases to do that kind of automatically. So they're shortcuts, and they're the shortcuts that help us sort of interpret and create reality. So perception creates reality. Oh, thought that was a really cool reflection in there.
That is cool.
I didn't modify it anyway. That's just the way it is.
It is super cool.
That's hilarious.
He looks like a little spoon dog.
Yeah. So, okay, that was kind of the review of perception. Now let's talk a little bit about the decision-making process. So if you've seen this, the basic graphic, you've seen it before. It's in every week's slides, messing with a bunch of other stuff. But now I just kind of want to zoom in. And actually, speaking of zooming in, what happens if we do that? There's this little zoom function. Okay, we'll play with that later. There we go. Theory of 5 steps. Okay, sorry. So the 5-step process comes from a guy called Kotler who invented a lot of marketing stuff that you've come across. And the thing to remember here is that it's similar to the central root of the elaboration likelihood model, which you've studied. But the thing to remember is, yeah, it's got 5 steps, and we're going to go through each step in some sort of detail. But we know that not every purchase decision follows all steps in the way we're going to look at it, right? So just kind of keep that in mind, that all of this is somewhat variable. But we'll kind of walk through it one by one. So starting with need perception. So when Charlie notices, like, first of all, he's got his perceptual barrier up all the time, right? But when he notices that there's a gap between his needs and wants, I'm focusing in now. Let's do that. Let's do that. Zoom in, yeah. So we zoom into that. Does that work? Yeah, kind of, eh? So I should be zooming in on part of the slide right now?
Yeah, you are.
Cool. So what we're really talking about is sort of what's going on down here. So we've talked about this in class. What stimuli get through the perceptual barrier? Stimuli that relate to needs and wants, right? So if we have a need, we're hungry, we're going to start noticing food advertisements, that type of thing. So what happens is when Charlie recognizes that there's a gap between where he is and where he wants to be, and that could be something as simple as, oh, I'm thirsty, I need to drink something, or it could be much, much bigger and more significant. I don't like where I live, I'm going to have to get a better job so I can afford to go somewhere else, that type of thing. It leads to motivation. But before that, it actually sort of opens up that perceptual barrier a little bit. So let's zoom out. And if I click, yeah, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, so it opens up that perceptual barrier, stimuli starts to get through, and it generates motivation to kind of move on to the next step. So there's the next step is information search. That box wasn't supposed to show up as quickly, but anyway, we have our barrier, right? But now, because we've sort of opened up our perceptual barrier in specific categories relating to the need and want, right? We're starting to let some stimuli in. So if you're out there shopping for new music, you start to become more aware of music in your feeds, right? Or if you were looking for a new computer, you start first of all, you just be more aware of it because you're starting to let that information in instead of screening it out like everything else. Secondly, you might even go so far as to think about it. So there's my little animated brain. I suppose I can zoom in. Yeah. And so you're thinking about it. Do you have any memory? Like, how much experience do you have, if we're using the computer example, how much experience does Charlie have with computers? He may remember a brand that worked really well for him, and in that case, he might have a preference for that brand, or he might think of a particular brand as being having a negative connotation. So it's the memory and learning part there. What does he already know about it? What does he need to know about it? And certainly probably go talk to other people, or he might go talk to other people. We've talked a little bit about these type of people called opinion leaders. So say I'm Charlie, I don't really know a lot about computers, but I know that Danica does, right? So I call her up and I say, hey, Danica, I need to buy a new computer. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And she can kind of walk me through it. So that's probably the most valuable and credible source of information. I'm also probably going to do a Google search, right? Or at least some kind of search. And to gather up whatever amounts of information I think I need, excuse me, whatever amount of information I think I need to make this purchase decision. So assuming I'm still in, right, I move on to this evaluation of alternatives step where there I am, there's Charlie. He's in there, he's still got his perceptual barrier. He's not letting quite so much stimuli through, right, because you kind of collected all of it. Still open, but figure he's got enough information and he's really thinking about it now. He's starting to compare the options that he's come up with. Is it affordable? Is it down in here we say that the text part, the congruence with self, personality, values, that type of thing. Any beliefs that he has about the brand in particular. And so then this stage kind of ends with I might talk to other people, say, so Danica, I'm thinking of buying this type of computer. What do you think? And is it affordable? Can I get at it? So then as I move closer to that decision, I cut out more information typically, and I start to think about how am I actually going to go about and purchase it. And this box is the things we might consider. So obviously it's sort of the quality, price, and features, that type of stuff. But which attributes matter most for Charlie at any given time? And you start to build an expectation at this point, right? So what's your expectation of the purchase? Ashley, you have a dog. Got a little glimpse of the black lab there, I think. Okay, moving on. You also look at what others say, right? You look for comments. Hopefully legit ones. So then we move on to sort of the purchase decision. So we have an intention to buy, and we might be limiting perception at this point just to the things that kind of relate to the actual purchase. So like, how do I buy it, right? I made that call. What do I have to do to buy it? Like, where's the closest store? Or do I buy it online? And as I sort of get towards the buy mode, and it's buy, but it could also be, you know, consume. I'm going to listen. I'm going to take some action. Like for your group projects, a lot of you aren't asking people to buy things. You're asking them to donate, change their behavior, whatever. So if you think about what's going on right now with COVID, right, the big public health messaging is all about changing behavior and not buying too much toilet paper. So anyway, however it's done, Charlie must somehow take delivery of that product or service and consume it. And there's the sort of consumption process, yeah. So after that, right, so there's a bit of a comparison that goes on. Now, based on the expectations, so whatever expectations you had going in, this is going to be the greatest thing. It's going to be the greatest thing, right? And then you use it, and it's like, ooh, it's not so great. Or maybe it is, but you know, so there's this brain thing going on again. You're thinking about it. You know, did I make the right decision? And maybe if there's a gap, if there's a big gap between what you thought you were buying and what you actually experienced, you get dissonance. Dissonance, dissonance, right? Post-purchase dissonance is called. It's bad because Charlie's feeling burnt, ripped off, whatever. And there was some research done years ago now, but when a consumer is dissatisfied, they're likely to vent and tell people about it. More so, like to the point of, you know, 10 times more likely to talk about it than somebody who's satisfied. So you really don't want people to experience dissonance if you can, which is one of the reasons from an advertising perspective, you want to be really careful about building unrealistic expectations. So in your ads, you know, you don't want to trump it up as being the greatest thing since sliced bread when it's really not. You need to be relatively honest so that folks don't create or have this huge gap between what they think they're getting and what they actually get. And of course, in today's world of social media, right, we've all got audiences. We've all got the capability of sharing, and it doesn't, I'm sure you've all seen them. It's not hard to find blog posts, sometimes in depth or sometimes just short posts saying, you know, I just got my new thing. Isn't there a whole stream of stuff on YouTube, you know, shopping, where people go out and they come back with their haul, whatever it is, and they kind of like showing it to your mother, but you're showing it to your YouTube fans, you know, look what I got my purse, I got my shoes, I got. So, okay, so that was kind of the overall thing. If we, as I mentioned earlier, there are sort of alternate routes. So if we have what's called a low involvement purchase where it's not that meaningful to us, or it's something we've done before, right? The search might be very nominal, if at all. We might just not do much search at all, not do much alternative evaluation either, because we know, you know, this is what we want. I know where to get it. Go get it, buy it, you're done. Kind of similar to the peripheral route. Another kind of slightly different version is there's hopping Charlie. He just hops right over those two phases of information, search, and evaluation. Just goes directly to purchase. He knows where to get it. He doesn't have to do any search at all. He just has to do it, right? So Amazon, one click, right? Easy, easy peasy. Happens automatically. It's an habitual purchase. It's not something that takes a whole lot of thinking. And I haven't done anything with the post-purchase evaluation piece there, but in a purchase environment like this, there probably isn't a lot of post-purchase evaluation going on. You know, if I'm used to buying Heinz beans, and that's what I buy, pretty good chance the second can I consume is going to be just like the first can, and I know what I'm getting when I buy it. So, you know, there's not much evaluation unless it goes bad. Does that make sense to everybody? Any question? No question?
No question.